welcome to the September B2B or September. Gosh, I can't even remember what month it is. October B2B Growth Show. I think it's September because it's still like 80 degrees outside in Dallas. But it is October. It's a warm October for us in Dallas. As you guys are joining in today, we'd love to know where you're joining in from. So just chat in there where you're from. I guess tell us who your favorite football team is. We're in football season right now. If you're a newbie, this is your first time to be on the B2B Growth Show. We'd love to know that. If you're a veteran, let us know that. If you've been to 2 or 3 of these before, we'd love to know that. So say hi to us. And, we're talking today about, in the agenda, you'll see this, how do we win buyers before they're in buying mode, basically. And if you've watched any of our growth shows before, this is something that is near and dear to my heart. So what I'd love to know is you're chatting in and joining in today. What is it that you're hoping to accomplish? Is there something in particular about how do you get in front of buyers before they're in market? Some tips that you'd like to pick up. I'd love to see that today. So welcome. We are going to go ahead and get started here, and welcome to those of you that are streaming on LinkedIn. This is 2 months in a row that we've been able to successfully do that. Although I tried really, really hard to not go on live on LinkedIn today. So I'm just glad that we are. I am excited about our special guest that we have today, Josh Baez from Netline, because we are going to be talking about this issue of getting in front of buyers before they're in market. And I think we all know that that's getting harder and harder to do today. And I thought Josh would be the perfect guy to talk about this because he runs demand for Netline. And Netline is a company that certainly knows how to get in front of buyers the right way. But he's also had stints at On24, which is a great webinar platform, and even Terminus, which was kind of the godfather of ABM. So without further ado, Josh, welcome to the B2B Growth Show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Hello to everyone. I'm coming in from Seattle. So you mentioned football season, Paul. The Mariners are making the playoffs, though. So I'm not a sports guy, but I was told to say that. So, so go baseball. Let's go.
There you go. And you're telling me that it's 39 degrees there.
Yeah,
which
it was
is
a brisk 39
degrees
degrees when I was walking my little pup this morning. So yeah, I'm loving it. I'm loving this weather. It's good to be here.
Yeah. That's awesome. And those of you that have been here before, Lauren will be moderating our chat today. She'll be keeping us on task, and she'll curate some of your questions to make sure that we get you guys involved in the session today. Lauren, you want to say hi?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's so great to be here today. Just looking forward to what we're going to talk about.
Awesome. Hey, before we get too far into it, and I know we have an agenda, you guys should see that agenda. We're going to drop it in the comments a couple of times to make sure that you can follow along. I do have some quick announcements that I wanted to share with you guys before we jumped too far ahead of it. Actually, 3 announcements, and I am going to share my screen. The first announcement has to do with a new resource that we've made available that I hope you're going to like. So let me share my screen. Okay, I'm having to do like too many things at once, and I'm not very good at that.
Paul has every single tab and app open on his computer. Right?
How many tabs do you have open,
I have
Paul?
like 25 tabs open, right? So there you go. All right, so the Pipeline Growth Assessment is this brand new assessment that we just built, and I'd love everybody that's watching today to go and give this thing a try. It's actually a survey. We'll drop a link to it in the chat. There's also a link in the agenda farther down in the resource section. But what this is designed to do is actually walk you through a series of questions that'll walk you through 4 areas of your business, like your overall corporate objectives, your go-to-market strategy, your pipeline optimization plan, and your revenue acceleration plan. And by asking these questions, it takes about 5 minutes. It will give you a score. So you'll get an overall health score, like in this example I'm showing you here, and it'll give you a category. So in this example, the score was 66%, which was an aggregate of all of the questions, and it gave this person the level builder. But then it goes farther than that. It actually breaks each of the different categories down and gives you a score for each category. And then it'll actually give you a game plan on how to improve things that you're weak on within those categories and things you need to double down on. And so it's brand new. I'd love everybody to go take the assessment. It's absolutely free. It takes 5 minutes to complete the assessment and give us feedback. It's brand new. We haven't done an assessment like this in a long time. So I'd really love to see what you think about it and if you feel like it's been helpful to you. So that's the first thing. The next thing that I wanted to announce is that we've got a great show in store for you next month. We have April Dunford. You can register for the show right here, under announcements on the agenda. April Dunford has written two of what I think are the best business books that have been written in probably the last decade or so on B2B marketing. She is well known as one of the best positioning, messaging folks in the world of B2B. Her book, obviously awesome, in my opinion, is a must read. But she's also written another great book, which is called Sales Pitch. And so what she does, she goes around the world and does these week-long workshops where she helps B2B companies figure out what is their, a differentiated value, what is their positioning and messaging as it relates to that, and how do you translate that into a sales presentation. She charges like $50,000 or $60,000 to do one of these workshops, but she's going to be our guest next month, and she's going to actually walk us through her framework. And I know everybody's thinking about 26. So this will be a good time for you when, at least for me, whenever it's a new year, I'm always thinking about how do we refine our messaging? How do we refine our positioning? And so I think this will be one of those that you'll absolutely want to attend. And you can register, like I said, right here at the in the agenda at the bottom under announcements. And then the last announcement is I wanted to give a shout out to Josh and the guys over at Netline. They have put together this phenomenal resource that is also linked in the agenda called the Marketing Mastery Workbook. I've taken a look at this thing and it's pretty impressive, Josh. Anything you want to share about it?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about must reads. This is the one. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the second edition. We released the first edition last year and it was a huge hit. Everyone that we shared it with loved it. We printed out physical copies of it that we have been sharing at events. So at events that I've been speaking at this year, we had these to give out and people have been loving it. So basically what this is it's like a look inside my chaotic brain. It's filled with like the exact templates, frameworks, worksheets, exercises that I've used throughout my career, starting all the way back, like since I worked like at a B2B marketing agency at the start of my career. Basically everything that you need to help kind of define how it is that you are building out your marketing plan. So everything from defining your ICP to creating content, to understanding the buyer's journey, to orchestrating campaigns, like everything that you could possibly want should be in there. It's great for beginners. It's also a really great reinforcement for people that feel like they have a really good handle on their stuff. So yeah, if you're looking for a little like guide as you are going through your own planning, take a look at that.
Yeah. And boy, the timing couldn't be perfect. I mean, that thing looks like, it's chock full of frameworks and templates.
It's
and
massive.
Checklists. Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's free for everybody that's joining us today. It's in the resource section of the agenda. So be sure to check that out. And so just wanted to walk you through those quick announcements. But now let's go ahead and dig in to this massive topic that we're going to be covering today, and why I thought, Josh, you would be the perfect guy to help us, because even as I said at the beginning of the show, attention is a hard thing to get right now. I mean, if you think about what's going on with Google and, the old school way, we would create content, put it out there on our website, Google would crawl it. And in exchange for that, of them consuming our content, they would give us a blue link, which drove traffic back to our website. Well, they've kind of broken that contract. We can't assume that just writing content, putting it on our website is going to give us the attention that we need. And everything that I've seen shows that traffic is down, leads are down. If you look at what's going on in LinkedIn today, it's a really crowded space, but attention is still something that we've got to figure out. How do we capture? How do we hold that attention? How do we get in front of buyers before they are in market looking for what we're trying to do? Say or do. And so that's our topic of today. If you look at the agenda, you know what? I'm actually going to share my screen one more time because I think this will be worth noting. We did ask you guys to fill out a survey before when you were registering today. And I had a little fun with Claude this morning. I'm more of a ChatGPT user, so I can't even tell you why I thought about Claude for this, but I just dumped in the survey results into Claude. And I said, hey, what's interesting about the results that we got from everybody that filled out the survey when they registered for today's growth show? Well, two really important things popped out of it. Number one, you guys, I think, are feeling the pain that I just talked about, right? 75% of you are saying that it's really important for you to try to get in front of those buyers before they're in market. But look at the second stat here. Only 15% of the folks that filled out the survey, which was about 30 of you guys, just to give you a reference, only about 15% of you feel like you're doing it really well. And I think that ties right back to it's just hard. It's hard to get in front of those buyers. And then if we look at what your biggest challenges are based on the survey, the number one challenge is lead quality. I thought that was interesting. Generating more leads was number two. So that's a big shift. I mean, I've been in this game for a long time. Usually when my phone rings and I start talking to somebody, it's like, how do I get more leads? How do I get more leads now? And now what we're seeing, and I've seen this shift all year, it's not just more leads, it's more quality leads. And so with that, Josh, I'm going to tee this up right into our first question and our first discussion, which is really this concept that you have shared, which is this death of the perfect moment. Can you help me understand really what that means, and then tie that into, this idea of getting attention and winning mind share before market share?
Yeah, so we'll dig into all of that. I will say, if you guys are dealing with lead gen, obviously I'm not going to pitch Netline, but I would love for you to give some of that budget to Netline. So, just a little cheeky plug there. But we'll get into the actual answers here in this discussion. So, yeah, this idea about like the death of the perfect moment is a concept that I have been building out for presentations that I've been speaking, for events that I've been speaking at. And it's this idea that in marketing, in most aspects of our lives, right, we are always trying to work up to get to this perfect moment. And usually by the time we get to that moment, there's another perfect moment, and then there's another perfect moment. And as someone who really loves planning, like I have spreadsheets on spreadsheets on spreadsheets. I think it's important that we all come to terms with the fact that, like, in today's age where we are constantly getting notified, pinged, buzzed, we constantly have distractions, like there is no perfect moment anymore. And that is inclusive of demand gen, lead gen marketing. Also, like in sales, like a buyer determines when they are ready to buy. And you, as the marketers, we need to understand when their perfect moment is versus us trying to fit them into our perfect moment. And what I mean by that is, traditionally we've had the flow where buyer downloads asset, goes through marketing nurture. After 3 touch points, sales reaches out. After 2 more touch points, deal turns into an opportunity. But like that doesn't happen anymore.
I don't know that it really ever happened. You know what I mean? I think we always wanted it to be that way, but it's just crazy.
And I think that like you can almost argue that like buying stages in and of themselves don't even exist anymore. Like I'll use myself as an example. When I'm looking for something, I don't follow any kind of linear path. What I'll usually do is I will check like multiple different sources. First, like I'll reference like ChatGPT. I'll use Google. I will reference like Reddit is a really big place where I like to compare things, especially like for like consumer products. Like I was looking at jeans the other night. And like I don't follow a path, and I don't want to talk to someone until I'm absolutely ready. And even then, it's like I don't really like want to talk to you. And so this idea of like perfect moment, it doesn't exist anymore. And so we as marketers need to be able to expand our thinking in how we strategize and how we plan to basically be everywhere all the time, but in a way that feels resonant and reliable and trusted. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
you know what that makes me think of, Josh, is, even if you go meet with like a financial planner, they'll tell you you can't time the market, right? You have to constantly, there is no, perfect time to buy a stock when it's low or to sell a stock when it's high. It's way better to be consistent. And so there are no perfect moments. There are no perfect times to buy stock. There are no perfect funnels. You know what I mean? It's like, and the data that I've seen recently is that 95% of our customers are not in market at any given time. And so if we're trying to time that perfect market or that perfect moment, we're dealing with a very, very needle in a haystack situation. And then when you combine that with the fact that, the Harvard Business Review study I reference all the time here on the Growth Show, that, B2B buyers today, before they go in market, so they're passively learning, they're consuming information. Anybody that's good at their job, they're always doing that. Hey, I've got this fire over here I'm trying to put out, but I've got these little campfires over here that I know someday I'm going to have to deal with. They're in passive learning mode on those campfires. And the reason why that's important is when those campfires become a forest fire and they're deciding I need to deal with this issue, according to Harvard Business Review, those B2B buyers already have 4 to 5 vendors in mind before they actually start researching for a vendor.
Yeah.
Why that's important is that they end up buying from one of those vendors that was already in their mind 90% of the time. Right, Josh?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned, I kind of think of it too as like an upside down iceberg, where it's like the majority of that buying is happening before the buyer actually needs you, or before they even realize that like they have a problem. Like it used to be like, oh, top of funnel, you'd like generate awareness, and then middle of funnel, you'd like encourage consideration. And now like I feel like all three of those like traditional layers have been like consolidated into like this like super thin line, and everything above that line is now like pre-brand awareness. It's like what you said, like passive learning. I love that. But yeah, you need to be everywhere. There's also that stat where 95% of your buyers aren't actually in market. And so if you are waiting for that 95% to reach that 5% threshold, like your competitors are busy educating, building brand. They're doing all the things prior to that like 5% threshold. And so if you're waiting for that moment to happen, like you're going to be too late by the time a buyer does need you.
Yeah. You know what, Josh, what that reminds me of is, and I'm just going back to conversations I have with companies all the time. They call me, they say, hey, I need leads. I need them now. Like right now, stat, give me some leads. And then you look at the kind of campaigns they want to run, and it's all direct response. They want people that are in market,
right,
that have never heard of them
Don't
before,
we all?
to become hand raisers immediately. And everything that you've just talked about really is about a 4-letter word, TRUST, 5-letter word, trust. Right? Those of us that are going after in market buyers with a direct response ad have not established any trust with the buyer at all. And the companies that are smart, that are doing like you're talking about, Josh, are the ones that are taking time when they're passively learning and feeding them information to help them know more about this industry, know more about this problem that they're trying to solve. In that process, they're building trust along the way. And so if there's two vendors, vendor one that's just showing up when the customer at that quote unquote perfect moment that doesn't really exist, and vendor two that's been out there building trust for the last 2 years, vendor two is going to win all day, every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Which I think is a great segue to the next topic. And that is this concept that I just absolutely love. It's something I've been a proponent of for 25 years. And that is that education is marketing, right? If we do education the right way, then we are actually marketing to our customers the right way. A big proof in point is, we do these growth shows. We do them every month. This is the 4th year that we've been doing it. We love these. This is a no sale zone. We will never pitch our services during the B2B growth show. But you know what, Josh? 80% of our pipeline comes from people that have attended the growth show. Education is marketing. That's what I'm really trying to point out here. And so tell me, in your experience in being with Netline, and gosh, you guys probably know more about content consumption than anybody. What kind of educational content really resonates with the B2B audience today?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that number one is you need to know who your audience is, because obviously not every idea is going to land with every person. That part's tricky. I mean, for us, like, we market to B2B marketers who I would like to think are okay having fun with things. But if you're marketing to like lawyers or like accountants, that might be different. I can't speak to that. But I'll leave it there.
Yeah. Well,
But
go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say the second part of that though is also just like, this is something my manager and I talk about constantly, which I really appreciate about him. Lean into your quirks, right? I'm going to share my screen now, Paul, if that's okay. Let's see if I can do this correctly. One moment, please.
Is it the
Every
perfect
platform
moment?
has to do it differently.
Here we go.
I think this is the perfect moment. Here we
That's
go.
right. This is the perfect moment right here. So I did 2 webinars recently. I'm a really big fan of Survivor, the TV show, and then also Grey's Anatomy. And so what I did was I was thinking, I'm really gosh dang tired of the same presentation being shared to me every single time I join a webinar, every single time I'm marketed to. It's always the same pitch, it's always the same stuff. Like, we need some new window dressing on how we present our ideas. Otherwise, B2B as an industry, and this is already starting to happen, it just starts to feel so sterile and so just like safe, same, like you see the same logos, you hear the same names. It becomes so stagnated. And so what I did was, I'm not saying that these are great ideas. I like them. But I did a whole webinar themed around Survivor, around this idea of like GTM Survivor Island. And these are like the things that you need to do to like win the final immunity. And then I also did one on what I called marketing's anatomy, where I went through, like, as if, you're watching an episode of Grey's Anatomy, 3 different cases around like your marketing funnel and how to save it. Again, I'm not saying that these are the right options all the time. Like, you need to know like where that balance is, but I think it's okay that we have fun with things, because otherwise, like, all of the education that you are producing, like, no one's listening, or if they are listening, no one's remembering. And I think that is really like the trick. Like, these are all layers that we need to think about, like, similarly to how like teachers teach students, where like you need something memorable, something that they can immediately like recall. Because like, unlike in school where you have a goal at the end, which is like graduating and getting your degree and, moving on in the workforce. Here, it's like, I don't really like, if you're not motivated by like, oh, I want to hit like the next career milestone, I want to get to CMO. And like, that's not for everyone. I never want to be a CMO, for example. But like, you don't have those goals and that intrinsic motivation, like pushing you to like cause you to remember this stuff. Like, yes, your job is, somewhat on the line. It's not like, not really, but like some of it is. But yeah, all that to say, like, if your educational content isn't memorable or meaningful or resonant, like, it doesn't matter what you produce, right?
Yeah, that's a great point, Josh, because, education is marketing. We touched on that because our buyers are passively learning. We want to get into their headspace before they're in market. But gosh, we're hit with an avalanche of content today, and not all of it's good. A lot of it's bad. A lot of it's written by AI. We were joking in the green room right before we started about how LinkedIn has gotten so bad because it just feels like robots talking to robots, right, Josh?
Yeah. Thank you for the TM. I appreciate that. So this is something that it's called the dead internet theory. I don't know where this started. I think it may have started on Reddit. I don't frequent Reddit that often. I know I mentioned it twice. But it's basically this idea that the internet is run by bots for bots. And like, that's not really LinkedIn yet, but it does seem to feel that way at some points. Like, you have viral LinkedIn posts that are clearly written by AI, and you have like magnitudes of comments all basically saying the same thing. And you as a bystander, at least personally, like I look at this and I'm like, did I like miss something here? Like, what is this? Like, why are we trying to reinvent funnels with new acronyms again? Like, why
Right.
are we trying to like disrupt the space with some of the most mid cold takes I have ever seen? Like, I don't understand where this is or like why this is happening. But like LinkedIn is a really good example where it's like, it's AI like for people that love AI. And you as a marketer, like you're never going to break through if that's the content that you produce. Like it's just not going to happen. Like Duolingo, really good example, educational app, perfect. Like they didn't break out of the language app scene because they played it safe, right? Instead, they adopted an owl that threatens to kill you in your sleep if you don't learn your Spanish. like,
I've
like
been
that's
threatened many
crazy.
times.
Like that's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Not saying that that's the right choice for me to be, but maybe it is.
Yeah,
Maybe it
the point
is. You
is,
know?
it goes back to we can't just educate. Well, first of all, AI can't come up with a new, fresh idea. I hope you guys know that, right? I mean, AI is learning from all the other content that exists out there. So all it's going to ever do is really regurgitate what's already out there. So if we're using AI exclusively to build our content, it's going to get really dead really fast. I'm not saying don't use AI. We use it every day at Vendy. But Josh, to your point, it's about taking education, taking it to the next level, making it entertaining, making it very uniquely you. Those two great examples of Survivor and Grey's Anatomy are great examples of how to take education to the next level. I would even say the Growth Show is another example of that. I mean, we were doing webinars until COVID, and then we're like, we got to do something different. And so we were like, we still love this format, but what can we do to make it different? And we're like, let's build a community around it. So instead of having, hey, we need some more leads, what are we going to do? Oh, I know, let's go do a webinar. No, let's be committed to do a webinar every single month. Let's do it at the same time, build an audience. Let's listen to our audience, hear what they want to learn about, hear who they want to talk to, and build a community around it and let our hair down a little bit. And what we found is that works really, really well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's all right. Like,
Yeah. So tell me, in the world of gated content, and I know you and I had a little fun on LinkedIn last week about whether we should gate content or not gate content. But, I know that we still have to gate content for certain things, like even registering for this growth show, you have to fill out a form, right? That's how we send you the links, fair exchange of value. What is your perspective on when to gate, when not to gate? How do we get it wrong when we gate? I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
yeah, I think it is a balance. Like everything in life, like nothing about this is black and white. I think that you need to balance the brand versus the demand, right? When you think about like this, for example, like this is a huge piece of content. I would hope that anyone who reads this gets immense value from it. And as an exchange, I would hope that they trust us enough to fill out a form to get it. This is something that we had mentioned in the green room, but I think that we vastly overthink what our buyers actually give a crap about. Like 1%, maybe even less than 1% of buyers actually care that they have to fill out a form. I would stand by, I would bet money on that. And yet you have an entire ecosystem and like community of people flocking to this idea of like leads and forms and gates are the worst thing you can do to your pipeline. When in reality, it's like your buyers are already like conducting research while you spend weeks in a boardroom with your CMO trying to argue against putting a gate on an ebook. And so it's like that kind of thing where does it actually matter? Maybe not. Think about like your content, think about the offers and like the experiences that you have. Maybe some of it is fit to go gateless, like videos, snippets of webinars, blogs, great example. But then again, with a blog, if people like you enough, they'll fill out a form to sign up for your blog. And so I think that all of this, it comes back to, and this is something that I don't think a lot of these like ex CMOs, ex marketing leaders mention, but it's that trust is at the heart of the entire conversation about whether or not to gate something. Because if a buyer trusts you enough, they will fill out a form for you every day of the week. If, like, for example, I had someone come and wash my house's windows the other day, and they asked me to fill out like 2 different surveys afterwards. And I trust them. I really built a relationship with like the person that was washing my windows. And I'm like, you know what? I want to make sure that this person gets the credit that they deserve. I will gladly fill out these 2 surveys for you. I will write a review on Google for you. I will tell you, I will share you to everyone that I know in my neighborhood. And that's because like the trust is built. If the trust isn't built, no one's going to fill out a form for what you have. Because like you said, Paul, AI content these days is like everywhere. And it's really hard to discern whether or not something is worth my contact info for a brand that I have no idea what they do or who they are. And so I think that establishing that trust prior to any of this conversation is really important. And that gets back to the idea of brand versus demand.
Yeah, I'll tell you, here's kind of my take on it. So one is, we always start with fair exchange of value. That's one of our core principles. Another core principle is partnering in their pursuit. And so, if what we're trying to do is serve them, and in order to serve them best, I need them to fill out a form, and there's fair exchange of value. That's usually when we will do it and when we advise our clients to do it. And so most of the stuff on our website, we don't have gated, except for these events, right? Because like I said, it's an exact kind of scenario where we want you to come to this. We've got to give you links. We've got to send you email reminders. All those things require that we have information so that we know that you're coming. And so those are things you'll see that are gated on our website, the event section of our site, or this assessment that I just talked to you guys about at the beginning of the call. It's, hey, we need you to fill this out so we can send you this report once we're done. And so, on our website, our thoughts are mainly be ungated unless we need it to be gated. Now, in case you don't know what Netline's all about, Netline is, and I'm going to let Josh kind of reframe it here in a second, but they can help you get your content, your high premium content out in front of a buyer network that's beyond, the Googles and the LinkedIns of the world. And because they leverage a partner network to accomplish that, that premium content is gated. And I feel like in that world, it makes sense because you're trying to get out to buyers in places that aren't coming to your website. We are trying to build an audience. Think about what your options are. I could go to Zoom Info and I could buy a list and I could cold call / spam people that have not raised their hand and said they're willing to receive information from me. Or I can go use a platform like Netline, get my best content out there across the web where I know my target accounts are, and then get them to get a great piece of content, an asset. And also I get in exchange for that permission to market to them. So I can say, hey, here's our pipeline growth assessment. Let's get it out there through Netline. Now those people have filled out the form. Now I've got them in my HubSpot. Now the next time I do a growth show, I can actually send them an email and invite them to my growth show. Those are examples where I feel like gating makes sense.
Yeah. I'm going to reference something or just refer to this comment that was made. Like, they opt out of gated content, they think it creates unnecessary friction. Totally fair. They love all of your content, which is awesome. But if Paul made me fill out a form every time I read something, I wouldn't love it. That's, I think, where the trick is, right? Like, we have technology that allows forms to get auto-filled, but you filled out the form at least once before. And so think about, like, if you never did, like, you'd never get access to this content. So it doesn't matter how many times you fill out the form, right? But like, even that one time, if it can grant you access to a whole library and catalog of content and experiences and things like that, like, that's, I think, how we should be thinking about our content. Like, not about individual assets. Although, like, obviously that is still a strategy, and that's something that we do ourselves, but also like holistically, like what is the form experience like? Because I agree with that. Like if we were forcing people to fill out content with like 12 form fields every single time, like I wouldn't do that either. I would probably just look for an AI generated summary. And so I think it's about like we need to think about like the tools at our disposal, and also finding that balance. But I will say my boss mentioned this. He was doing a presentation last week in New York to around like 200 marketing execs. And he said that it's the filter that makes coffee worth drinking. And so if you think about friction in marketing, like this is from the marketer's perspective, but also from the buyer's perspective, a little bit of friction helps narrow in that intent. And if a buyer doesn't want to fill out a form for whatever reason at any point in time, or at like a certain point in time, that's okay. Like we're not going to hold it against you. Maybe you'll come back and fill out a form for a different thing, maybe not. But we do know that people that are filling out those forms, that are taking the time to answer those questions, we know that they are in a mindset that they are ready to talk, or that they're ready to research more, that they're ready to buy. And we can then inform our sales team of all the things that they said in their form. And we can tell them, hey, this person filled out this form. They answered additional questions that we added to the form, like their timeline to purchase. We need you to make sure that you know this and that you reference this in your outreach. And so I think it is that balance that you really need to strike. Like, not every buyer is going to be the right buyer for you at every time. And so like understanding like who is in play versus who is not. It's that 95 and 5, right?
Right. You know, it kind of goes back to also just for the sake of this conversation, you know, in today's world where, you know, we've got really great CRM platforms like HubSpot that can monitor signals. You know, you've got to get somebody in your CRM to start with, right? You can't monitor signals until somebody's in your CRM, because you don't know really who they are until they've raised their hand. Correct. And so, you know, I think where Josh and I are probably similar is that I would rather get somebody to give me permission to market to them by raising their hand. And how do you do that? You have to fill out a form at some point, whether that's fill out a form to come to a growth show or fill out a form to say, yes, you're allowed to market to me. But then you really don't need them to fill out a form ever again if you've got your CRM set up the right way. So it's not, you know, to the anonymous chat person there, thank you that you love our content. That's awesome. We don't ask you to fill out forms once you're in our CRM, because we know who you are and we can track your buyer lead score, your behavior, all those things beyond that. So really, it's at that point, it does become just partnering in their pursuit. You know, we will make you fill out a form if it's something that we need in order to serve you better. So,
and I just to interject,
yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
Like the form, at the point when you fill out the form, you've proven that your content is good enough to warrant that. And you've probably done that at that point through ungated content. So, I mean, ungated content still definitely has a place, because you have to prove that your content is good enough to warrant the form, to establish the trust that Josh was talking about. And Paul, the anonymous user is Natalie Perez, so we know her.
Oh, hey, Natalie. Definitely a friend of the show. So glad you're here. Awesome. So let's transition this conversation into ABM, because, you know, for those of us that are on the show watching today, you know, account-based marketing is something that we're all doing, whether it's, you know, very formal Terminus or 6th Sense type of ABM, or just having a target audience that we're trying to reach, or a bunch of logos that we're trying to reach. What are the implications to what we're talking about, especially when we kind of get back to this perfect moment and reaching buyers before they're in market? What are the implications we need to be thinking about, Josh, as it relates to ABM?
Yeah, ABM is great. It falls short when you actually need to understand the who, right? So I think that this is where a lot of the ABM vendors, especially in recent years, have tried to elevate the idea that you don't need forms, you don't need MQLs, all you need is a really good ABM tool. The problem with that is, like you said, Paul, until you actually get someone in your CRM, you have no idea who they are. You can't track buyer progression, you're just guessing at like an account. You don't know whether it's a procurement manager or a CMO. And that, I think, is where ABM starts to fall short. It's really, really good directionally to, I do believe in like, there are buying groups within organization that you need to market to and saturate every single member of that buying group. But you can't do that you can't do that meaningfully unless you start to know more about them. And I think that is where, things like lead gen, demand gen really start to shine, where you have ABM as this like directional compass of like, yes, these are my top 200 target accounts. I'm going to market programmatically via advertising to members of those accounts and hope that they click on those ads and come back to my website. That alone is already like, it's a little bit kind of tricky, especially today.
Yeah.
No one's clicking on ads. Like I have ad blockers like on every computer that I own. Like I'm not seeing ads in my day to day. But ideally they do come back or they at least start to recognize your brand. And that's when you start to integrate things like demand gen, like PPC advertising, like lead generation solutions, to then start using those account lists as the sources to pinpoint the actual individuals within those accounts. But without that, like you are basically shooting at like a hallway in the dark, hoping that like it is the right person. That
trying to boil the ocean, right? It's really impossible. I will tell you exactly how we've used Netline for our clients in the past in our ABM strategy. So we'll take an audience, let's say, and we're full funnel in our approach. So we have different messages that we engineer for top of the funnel, which are people that don't know that our client exists or the problem that they solve. Then we have a different messaging that we deliver to people that are aware of our client and the problem they solve, and that they're signaling that they might be closer to getting in market. And then we have another set of messaging bottom of the funnel. And so what we'll do is we'll come up with this audience. Maybe it's an industry segment. Maybe it's a list of 1,000 logos. It doesn't really matter for this example. And we'll start top of the funnel campaigns at like LinkedIn. Let's say we're running a top of the funnel campaign to get awareness in LinkedIn because it's easy to target folks. Then we'll take a gated piece of content, a premium asset. We'll run a campaign in Netline, and then all of the people that download the gated asset inside of Netline, we actually treat them like a retargeting audience, which would move people to the middle of the funnel. So we now know that this person that works for XYZ company is aware of our client and the problem that they solve. So let's light them up in the middle of the funnel. And we just don't light up that person. We light up that entire company, the buying committee, who we suspect might be the buying committee of that company. So it becomes, a signal for us to treat that logo and that individual as middle of the funnel versus top of the funnel. And this is something I meant to mention last time in the last segment. One of the things I feel like people get wrong about all of this is they treat a gated piece of content, whatever it is, whether it's register for this or download Josh's marketing mastery guide, they treat it like a lead, and that we should not treat gated content form fills as leads, period. They're a signal. They are not a lead. And where people have had problems in the past, and I've even seen it, in our own cases where we've done this with clients and ourselves, somebody downloads a gated piece of content. We hand it off to sales. We treat it like it's a hot hand raiser. Sales gets pissed. The person that filled out the form's not happy. It's a train wreck. But if we treat it like a signal and we just we treat them like a retargeting audience, it works way, way better. What do you think about that, Josh?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. People are downloading content at, I think, an accelerated rate. We have a stat, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but Netline, every year we release a content consumption report on all of the users in our database and all of the registration points. I'm trying to find that right now. But basically,
we actually have it linked. It's linked in perfect. The resource section, so you guys can grab that later.
Yeah, that's great. So that's built off of 8 million singular registration points. from the users that use our platform. That was this past year. That's a record for us. Like 8 million first party registrations is insane to think about. But we also found that the demand, so the number of registrations for gated content, it has grown by over 80% since 2020. So that line is like super steep. So we know that buyers are actively engaging with content. And this also, like, this is the stat too, where it's like when people are saying that, oh, gated content doesn't work. It's like, well, we have 8 million registration points to prove you differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that when, like, that is the problem. Like, brand recall is a huge issue because we are so saturated. Like, it's no longer just like you have the 3 competitors and you're one of them. So just 2 competitors. And it's really easy for someone to remember your name because the short list is the entire space. But now you have like dozens of companies coming out of the woodwork, and having that brand recall is harder than ever to attain. And so when you treat every lead or every buyer that downloads something, when you treat them like a lead that is immediately ready for sales, you are assuming that they know your brand, that they trust your brand, that they can recall your brand, and that your brand has made their shortlist. When in reality, maybe they just downloaded the Marketing Mastery Workbook because they wanted some tips on how to define their ICP. And that has nothing to do with Netline services. So I would never want a lead or someone who downloads that asset to go to sales. Like, I want to put them through nurture. I want to help like build our brand for them in their mind before any kind of sales conversation happens.
Yeah, that's a great segue into this new way that you're positioning what Netline's all about, which is this programmatic lead gen. So you want to kind of carry that concept into really, what does programmatic lead gen look like, feel like, sound like? How should we use it?
Yeah. Well, so this came about, I think that like lead gen has had a really rough time of it lately. It's kind of like we have been like beaten down by all of these AVM players. And so Netline as an organization, and within Informa, who is our parent company, we've developed this new kind of, it's not a new category because it is lead gen, but it's a new name for it. We're calling it programmatic lead gen or programmatic content marketing. And in the same way that you have account-based marketing with programmatic advertising, so think about AdRoll, 6 Sense, DemandWorks, DemandBase and DemandBase. They have programmatic advertising where they have partnerships with different publishers and websites that enable you to upload a set of ads through their platform, and those ads get distributed dynamically to their network. Where you then pay for impressions or you pay for clicks based on a target audience that you set. Similarly, with Netline, programmatic lead gen is the same thing. So instead of paying for clicks or impressions, though, you are paying us for pay per download or pay per registration. So you're not relying on people just seeing your ads. You are actually paying us for qualified leads that register and download your content from our network of 15,000 publishers like Forbes, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, essentially allowing you, and this kind of circles back to the conversation from the beginning, being where your buyers are already researching and where they already trust is much easier than trying to establish trust in a completely new place. And so with a tool like Netline, and I'm not here to pitch Netline, so I apologize. I'm not a salesperson. I don't really know this. But with a tool like Netline, you can reach your buyers where they are already conducting research and where they trust, like in Forbes, Bloomberg, et cetera. And so you can do that programmatically and at scale.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've always loved about Netline when we run campaigns for clients in Netline is that, before we even light up the campaign, we know what the cost per hand raiser or cost per registration is. And then, which is great. And I love the way you positioned it, because even if you were doing some kind of 6 Sense campaign or display campaign, which I'm not a fan of those anyways, because when you think about a display ad. A display ad shows up when you're checking the weather for the weekend. Hey, am I going to be able to play golf this weekend or not? Am I going to be able to fish this weekend or not? Oh, there's an ad. I just don't think the recall is the same versus I'm on the Wall Street Journal and I see some content that I might be interested in. That's a little different scenario. And then I only pay for the registration. But then, tying it to the last conversation we just had, we have to treat it not as a, the way we interact with them post registration is not call to action. It's call to learn more. Hey, we know something about you because you downloaded this thing. This is your email. This is the company you work for. And because of those things, those signals, we're going to give you an opportunity to learn more with us. So it's a call to learn more, not a call to action. And
one of the things, that's actually a really important point. Like one of the biggest challenges of new customers of ours is that they immediately send all leads generated by content syndication to their sales team. That is like pretty much like you are guaranteed to lose that deal. This is where like brand recall and nurturing like plays probably its most important part. Because if someone is just researching topics, we know that like demand and content consumption has increased by 80% since 2020. That's a lot of people downloading a lot of content at one time, and they're not going to recognize like logos when they're in research mode. They're just trying to find the answers to their questions. They don't care who it's from, not necessarily, as long as it's in like a trusted place. You get what I mean? Like, so having that nurture in place is critical to the success of your lead gen efforts, which is also similar to ABM. Like, I think that that's also the disconnect where people don't view ABM in the same light that they view other demand gen channels. But after someone engages with you on after buyers engage with ABM programs that you create, you nurture them, and you don't measure ABM based on the number of leads that it generates, right? That's not how you measure like the success of your ABM platform. So similarly with any other demand gen channel, lead gen included, like you need to nurture those folks, and we need to understand that like it's not a simple math equation of if they generated X amount of leads for us, they are successful or they're not. It's like, no,
right.
How well have they primed our pipeline to then enable us to nurture and educate and move and like accelerate that decision-making process? Like those are the units of measurement that we need to think about.
Exactly. And, even I would never recommend run your ABM program exclusively on Netline or exclusively on LinkedIn. Or
don't do that either.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a true ABM campaign needs to surround the buyer. Right. So you've got this subset of logos that you're going after. When they're on LinkedIn, there you are. When they're at the Wall Street Journal, there you are. When they're on Google, there you are. I mean, that's kind of the important. And I love what you said, Josh. It's not about did this one tactic generate leads. It was here's a set of customers. Did we get a higher pipeline velocity with these logos than with the logos we weren't targeting? That's ultimately how we measure the success of ABM. Hey, Josh, we've got like 6 minutes left, and so rapid fire here. All things considered, the folks that are attending today, I think they really were interested in how do we get in front of buyers before they're in market? How do we capture and hold their attention? Are there 2 or 3 big takeaways, practical things you want to leave the audience with today?
Yeah. So if you leave with anything, make sure that it's this, I think. Your buyers are everywhere. They are online. They are offline. They are on LinkedIn, on Google, on AI tools, sometimes on your website, but not always. And so you, as a marketer, need to be everywhere too, whether that means on Wall Street Journal, on LinkedIn, on the Weather Channel. Like we need to create surrounding and relevant and resonant experiences for our buyers. Otherwise, we're not doing our job as marketers. Like brand recall is the job. I know that a lot of people will say, oh no, marketing is responsible for revenue. Like I have a lot of thoughts. Well, that's a different show. Brand recall, I think, is brand recall and brand in general is like, that is the core of what we do. Trust layers into that. If you can build that often and early, like the rest of your pipeline will flourish because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about what is the purpose of marketing, my simple definition is the purpose of marketing is to make selling easier, especially in the B2B, right? And so in order to do that, we have to take people that don't know that our company exists. We need to make sure that they know that we exist. Then we need to make sure they know the problem that we solve, right? And then we need to start seeing who that buying committee is and seeing the signals that show that they're in market, so that instead of giving this sales rep, hey, here's the 1,000 people badge scans we got at inbound, we can actually go and say, give them a call and see how that works out. We can say, hey, here's 5 people that are in our CRM that are showing us they are ready now. Why don't you reach out to those folks and talk to them? And that's really all the things we've been talking about today are leading us up to those types of moments. And so, Josh, one last question before we wrap for the day. This is a brand new segment for those of you that have been watching the Grow Show for a while. I wanted to add this segment in because, man, AI is just constantly changing. And we have great, awesome, very smart people on our show as guests. And so, Josh, you're our first one, but I'm going to ask you the last question in the agenda, and that is, how do you AI? What is some tip or trick you can share with the audience on how you're using AI today?
I love it. So I do a lot of webinars, and my brain is an absolute mess. And so what I do is I have a dog, a little Australian Shepherd. Her name's Millie. I love her. We go on walks like 2 or 3 times a day, and we'll walk for like 40 minutes a time. What I will do is I will have my phone and my headphones, and I will just start doing text to speech, and I'll just talk, like think about all of the ideas that come into my head, especially if I have like a prompt or like a goal in mind. I'll speak, and based on that transcript, I'll then pop that into like ChatGPT to help organize like all of my different thoughts. And from that, I can then decide, hey, what should be a webinar? What should be a written asset? What should be a blog post? What could be a LinkedIn post? So I use ChatGPT as a way to organize like the pure chaos that's in this little brain of mine. And I think that it's been really helpful to help me articulate and kind of understand like how I think in a way that's like meaningful for not only just for me, but also like for the job that I have. So that's been really helpful.
Man, that's a great idea. I can tell you some of my best thinking happens when I'm walking, and
That's right.
I have never done that. And by the time I'm done with my walk, I've forgotten everything that I thought about. So
it's funny. I'll do another shameless plug. I have a webinar coming up. It's called Strategy Happens in the Margins. And it is about that. It is about how do you reintroduce creativity and inspiration into your workflow without completely disrupting or slowing down what it is you're doing. So if you're interested in that and you enjoyed what I had to say today, you can, I shared a link to that.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. Well, guys, thank you for joining us today. I hope this was an informative session. Josh, thank you very much. Great job today. Love your perspective on all of these things as it relates to getting in front of the buyer. At the end of the day, we're not going to win business if we wait until the perfect moment, right? Because as Josh said, there is no perfect moment. And so be sure to join us next month for the April Dunford show, because I think you're going to really enjoy what she has to say about messaging and positioning and really coming up with a differentiated value that none of your competitors can say that they do, that will really make you stand out. And if you don't mind, please take the pipeline growth assessment. I think it'll be incredibly valuable for you, but I'd love to get your feedback back on how can we make it better. And so guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next month. You guys have a great rest of the day.